You woke up with a plan. Today was the day. You opened your eyes, grabbed your phone for just 1 minute, and 40 minutes later, you're still in bed. That's not weakness. That's a system, just not yours, one that was designed against you. Your brain spent millions of years evolving to survive, not to build a career, not to study, to survive and burn as little energy as possible doing it. Social media delivers dopamine with zero effort. Your actual work does not, and the brain always chooses the path of least resistance. Always. That's why willpower doesn't work. It's fighting millions of years of evolution, and it loses every time you're tired, hungry, or just not feeling it. There's another way, not fighting the brain, hacking it from the inside. Today, 4 mechanics, not motivation, mechanics.
Chapter 1. Your brain isn't against you. It's just old. Picture a person living 100,000 years ago. Their only job today, survive. Find food, don't become food. Don't waste energy on anything that isn't critical. In that world, a brain that puts off complex tasks and chases instant rewards is a perfect brain. That's the brain that survived. That's the brain that passed its genes down. That's the brain sitting in your skull right now. The problem is that the conditions changed. The brain didn't. When you open Instagram instead of sitting down to work, that's not a character flaw. It's an ancient program that still believes a quick reward beats a distant one. When you say, "I'll start Monday," that's not a lack of ambition. That's your brain looking for a way to conserve energy right now. Stanford neurobiologist Robert Sapolsky put it plainly. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and self-control, is evolutionarily the newest and the most energy-hungry region we have. At the first sign of stress or fatigue, the brain shuts it down and hands control back to the limbic system, the ancient survival center. That's why after a hard day, you don't read books, you watch TV. It's not weakness, it's biology.
Chapter 2. Procrastination isn't a you problem. The system is broken. Here's a situation most people know pretty well. You sit down to work. You open the right file. You stare at it for 10 seconds. And suddenly, you really should check your email, or make coffee, or just watch one video. An hour later, nothing done, but a fresh coat of guilt applied. And you tell yourself, "I have no willpower. I'm lazy. I just can't focus." That's not true. James Clear in Atomic Habits describes procrastination not as a personality trait, but as a symptom that the task feels too big, too undefined, or too far from any immediate reward. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, looks at a large, fuzzy task and fires a warning: danger, too uncertain, too painful, retreat. Timothy Pickle at Carleton University, who spent 20 years studying procrastination, found that people aren't avoiding the task, they're avoiding the uncomfortable feelings that come with it: boredom, anxiety, the fear of not being good enough. Every time you open TikTok instead of working, your brain isn't sabotaging you, it's protecting you from pain, from uncertainty. This is a protective mechanism that's millions of years old, and it's extraordinarily effective, just not where you need it to be. The good news, once you understand the mechanism, you can reprogram it, not fight it, reprogram it. That's what comes next. 4 specific tools, each with a real example.
Dopamine detox. Turn off the cheap hits. Here's why work feels like torture, even when you actually want to get it done. Your brain is a dopamine machine, and dopamine isn't the pleasure hormone, the way people usually describe it, it's the anticipation hormone. It fires in the moment of searching for a reward, which is exactly why you scroll endlessly, not because every post is interesting, but because the next one might be. The problem starts when you stack stimulation. You don't just drink coffee, you drink coffee with YouTube open and your feed loading in another tab. You don't just rest, you rest with 3 windows going at once. Anna Lemke, a Stanford psychiatrist and author of Dopamine, calls this a shift in the baseline. Your brain raises its dopamine threshold, and after that level of stimulation, ordinary work just registers as empty and dull. The brain literally stops seeing the point. Here's what that looks like. You check your phone first thing in the morning, watch a few videos, scroll through some news, then sit down to work on a project. The brain is already full. The project, by comparison, is a gray wall. No wonder you're back on your phone 5 minutes later. Now flip it. You wake up, no screens for the first 40 minutes. Uncomfortable? Yes. But the brain hasn't had its cheap hit yet. And when you open your work file, it processes that as the only available source of interest. The threshold dropped. Work became possible. That's the dopamine detox. Not giving up pleasure forever, just one rule. Work first, reward after. 40 minutes of work, then your phone. One block of tasks, then YouTube. Andrew Huberman at Stanford calls this sequencing instead of stacking. The brain doesn't lose the reward, it just learns to expect it after effort, not before.
The 2-minute rule. Trick the amygdala. Have you ever put something off so long that the task became scarier than it actually was? Of course, because the brain doesn't evaluate a task objectively. It evaluates how big it looks, and the bigger something looks, the louder the amygdala screams danger. James Clear describes a simple workaround. Don't try to make yourself complete the task. Just make yourself start. 2 minutes, that's it. Not, I'll write the report, but I'll open the document and write the first paragraph. Not, I'll work out for an hour, but I'll put on my shoes. Not, I'll read 3 chapters, but I'll read 1 page. This micro-action bypasses the amygdala. It's too small for the brain to register as a threat. And once you've started, the Zeigarnik effect kicks in. The brain hates unfinished things and naturally pushes toward completion. You don't force yourself to keep going. You just start, and the rest happens almost on its own. Here's what it looks like in real life. There's an email you've been avoiding for a week. Every time you think about it, you feel resistance. Tomorrow. Not now. Try this instead. Tell yourself, I'll just open a draft and write 1 line, the subject. That's all, nothing more. Odds are you won't stop there, but even if you do, you broke the avoidance loop. Next time, starting will be easier. One more thing worth knowing. The 2-minute rule is especially powerful in the morning. The first choice of the day sets the tone for everything that follows. If your first action after waking is checking your phone, the brain registers, today I react to whatever comes at me. If your first action is even 5 minutes of something that matters, the brain registers, today I act. This isn't magic. It's what Clear calls the compound interest of habits, small decisions that accumulate quietly over time. Reversed reward. Effort first, pleasure after. Now for how most people structure their day and why it systematically destroys discipline. You wake up. First thing, reach for the phone. Social media, news, messages. You get a reward before you've done anything at all. And the brain learns a simple rule. Reward exists without action. So why bother? B.F. Skinner showed in the mid-20th century that behavior only sticks when a reward follows the action. Not before, not instead of, after. When you give yourself the good stuff before working, you break that link. The brain stops associating effort with anything pleasant. Change the order and everything changes. Here's a concrete setup. You wake up, phone stays face down. First, 20 or 30 minutes of work, or a workout, or whatever matters most to you. Then, coffee, your feed, a show, whatever you want. Not as a gritted teeth reward, as the natural continuation of a morning where you already did something important. What happens in the brain? Sapolsky's research showed that when a person knows a reward is coming, but only after the action, dopamine starts firing during the work itself. The process becomes the reward. And there's another layer. Every small completed task, a box checked, a paragraph written, a book opened,
releases a tiny hit of dopamine. The brain logs, "This action feels good," and next time it puts up less resistance. That's how discipline actually builds, not through willpower, through repeated micro-reward. Clear calls this temptation bundling in Atomic Habits. Pair what you need to do with something you actually want to do. Only allow yourself to watch your favorite show while you're on the treadmill. Only allow yourself your favorite coffee after the first hour of work. Not as self-punishment, as deliberate design. The brain starts connecting effort with pleasure, and the resistance quietly fades. Not all at once, but consistently.
Identity. Become the person who just does it. And here's the fourth level, the deepest one, and the most often skipped. The first three mechanics are about environment and behavior, but there's a question underneath all of them that determines whether any of it actually sticks. Who do you think you are? If you say, "I'm trying to be more disciplined," you've already lost, because in that sentence, discipline is an external goal you're reaching toward, something foreign. And the brain treats that as a conflict between who you are right now and who you're trying to become. In that conflict, the current identity always wins. Here's a simple example. Two people are offered a cigarette. The first says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second says, "No thanks, I don't smoke." Both decline, but the first person is still fighting. The second has already decided who they are. Clear describes this as the deepest layer of change. Not what do I want to achieve, but who do I want to be. In practice, it looks like this. Instead of "I need to work out," I'm someone who works out. Instead of "I should spend less time on my phone," I'm someone who controls where my attention goes. This isn't a mantra. It's neuroplasticity. Every action that matches the new identity, even a small one, even 2 minutes, is a vote for it. Michael Merzenich, a pioneer in neuroplasticity research, showed that the adult brain is capable of deep rewiring, but only through consistent, repeated behavior over time. Identity doesn't change from a single decision. It's built from micro-commitments. You don't become a disciplined person the moment you decide to be one. You become one when, for the 5th time in a row, you choose effort over avoidance. And when those moments accumulate, identity locks in, not as a goal anymore, as a fact.
So, 4 mechanics. First, dopamine detox. Before you sit down to work, don't give your brain a cheap hit. Work first, pleasure after. Second, the 2-minute rule. Don't aim to finish the task, aim to start. Open the file, write the first sentence, put on your shoes. Starting is everything. Third, reversed reward. Flip the order of your day. Important things first, then enjoyment. Pair work with something you actually like. Let the brain start associating effort with pleasure instead of pain. Fourth, and most important, kill the old identity, the one that waits for motivation, the one that looks for excuses. Replace it with the identity of someone who just does the thing, regardless of mood, energy level, or circumstances. Every small action is a vote for the new version of you. You don't need superhuman willpower. You need a system that makes laziness impossible. And now you know how it's built. If you're ready to start, drop a lock emoji in the comments. That's your first micro-commitment. Subscribe if you want more mechanics and less motivational fluff. See you next time.